Our lakes are reflecting the exceptionally dry and hot summer we've had. Boat launches have struggled with low water levels, swimmers have enjoyed warmer waters earlier in this season, and sensitive ecosystems have been affected.
One of the things we've seen this year with decreases in precipitation, we saw decreases in the algae in that particular lake, and the fish community also responded to that change.
While a single year like this one can have dramatic changes, the Minnesota DNR Sentinel Lakes program is more interested in the changes observed by long-term averages. They monitor 25 carefully selected lakes across the state. We went to Hill Lake, which is one of the Sentinel lakes representing northern Minnesota.
Because we can't monitor all of Minnesota's lakes, we're monitoring a subset of lakes to learn as much as we can about those changing conditions.
Each Sentinel Lake has continuous water temperature loggers in them. There are differences from one lake to another, but the data has revealed a consistent warming trend.
Ice cover has been, on average, declining over time. Water temperatures are increasing, and the differences that we're seeing are both regional, with the greatest increases in north central Minnesota, and seasonally with the greatest increases in June.
The DNR is very interested in where and when the changes are occurring in order to monitor how they're influencing the fish communities.
Some of the increases that we're seeing are in largemouth bass, bluegill, black crappie, and others like white sucker, yellow perch, different bullhead species. We're seeing declines over time.
White sucker in particular has been declining statewide. Schoenebeck says this is significant because anglers don't target them.
So when you see declines in certain species, not attributed to angler harvest, it can be attributed to changing environmental conditions over time.
An evolving fish community directly affects anglers and the overall ecosystem of a given lake.
This information is important for DNR, so as we can understand these changes over the course of time, that's going to factor into the management of Minnesota's lakes as well.
Beyond the Sentinel Lakes, the DNR also has programs monitoring our shallow and wild rice lakes. We met biologist Melissa Thompson at Big Rice Lake north of Virginia. Thompson says changes in the wild rice harvest over time have been evident.
I've heard stories of people from, 30 years ago talk about pulling hundreds of pounds of rice off of lakes, and you see pictures of, just like here at Big Rice, there's hundreds of vehicles parked at the access waiting for that opening day of ricing, and we're not seeing that as much nowadays.
Thompson says a number of factors may be contributing to the decline of wild rice. Warmer water temperatures in the winter can cause problems with germination.
Rice needs a pretty long dormancy period over the winter. It germinates at about 42 degrees or so. So sometimes it's already germinating when there's still ice, on the lake.
Warmer water earlier in the season allows competing vegetation like pickerel weed to take over.
As the years went on and we tried different management things, we tried to set it back, we tried different water levels, we tried all this stuff, and the pickerel weed just continued to spread across the lake.
Pests are another cause of problems.
When it's really hot, and more so when it's humid, these rice worms can decimate a stand of rice because they just go through and eat the little kernel.
Wild rice is also very sensitive to water levels. Thompson says most of what they do to maintain water levels is ensure a free-flowing outlet by trapping beavers and removing beaver dams. Irregular heavy rain events are more difficult to control. These photos of Kettle Lake demonstrate how the 2012 flood wiped out the harvest of that season.
It just seems like the last 10 years or so that I can really speak to, we've been getting these big June, July rain events. Not this year, but those definitely can have an impact. And when that occurs year after year, that really, impacts the rice and creates conditions that are better for other plant species to move in.
The DNR isn't the only organization keeping track of wild rice lakes. The 1854 Treaty Authority preserves and protects the rights of the Grand Portage and Bois Forte bands of the Lake Superior Chippewa.
So we, since 1998, have been monitoring a group of about 10 lakes and rivers to track wild rice abundance over time. And wild rice naturally fluctuates, so you get some good years, bad years, but we're starting to see over time kind of a long-term potentially slow decline in wild rice.
Their research has pointed to the same challenges facing rice as the DNR: higher frequency of heavy rain events, competing vegetation, and pests related to rising water temperatures.
There's a fungal diseases we're seeing more in these hot, humid nights, and we're starting to see more fungal diseases in rice in northeastern Minnesota we didn't see before.
As is the case with the Sentinel Lakes program, a long-term set of observations will be the best tool in identifying the cause of these variables that are leading to a decline in wild rice and ultimately mitigating them.
We've been monitoring the same group of water since '98, which is slowly turning into a longer data set, but other entities too are starting to monitor more wild rice lakes, and so we're trying to build this kind of regional database of wild rice information.
The Fond du Lac Band has joined the multi-agency effort to restore the wild rice harvest in our region, even though the 5 harvestable lakes they care for have not reflected the same decline. Natural Resource Manager Thomas House says this is because of the level to which their lakes are maintained.
So we've invested millions over the years monitoring water level, manipulating plant communities, doing reseeding when necessary, and so there's a lot of attention given to these. These are like garden for our people.
They have partnered with the DNR on maintaining Big Rice Lake.
They said, hey, we need assistance, and we were able to lend some of our expertise to them, and so that's grown into a full-blown partnership now where we're 2 of the 3 airboats that are up there cutting vegetation to bring Monoman back.
House says the Fond du Lac Band has a responsibility to join in the regional efforts.
So Ojibwe people, Monoman has always taken care of us, for hundreds of years since we've been in this region. And so as it struggles in places, it's our job to reciprocate and advocate for it or actually physically restore it in places.
If a declining trend in wild rice harvest were to continue, it would have devastating cultural implications.
But it's also central to everything that we do ceremonially, from birth to death and everywhere in between. It's absolutely critical, and so the decline of it more broadly throughout the region is of course concerning.
With you with our changing environment, I'm meteorologist Brandon Weathers.